17-year-old Serafina Blake stared at her phone screen, her heart shattering as she read the message one more time. I love you too, Angel. You're the most beautiful, intelligent girl I've ever known. I dream about the day we can finally meet. The text was from Alex Sterling, the 24-year-old art student from Columbia University who had been her secret boyfriend for the past 6 months, the one person who truly understood her soul. But the devastating truth was now undeniable: Alex Sterling didn't exist. He was actually Mr. Gabriel Harrison, her married AP literature teacher who was sitting just 10 feet away from her in their classroom, grading papers with the same hands that had typed those lies, wearing his wedding ring while he told her she was the love of his life. The phone trembled in her grip as she realized that every romantic word, every intimate conversation, every promise of forever had come from the man she saw every day, the man she trusted, the man who was supposed to protect her, not prey on her innocent heart. Serafina had always been different from her classmates at Westfield Preparatory Academy. While other girls her age were obsessed with parties and social media drama, she found solace in poetry and literature, spending hours in online forums discussing Sylvia Plath and Virginia Woolf with strangers who shared her passion for words that could capture the human experience. She was intellectually mature but emotionally vulnerable, having lost her mother to cancer 2 years earlier and struggling to connect with her grief-stricken father who buried himself in work rather than deal with the gaping hole in their family. The internet had become her escape, a place where she could be herself without the pitying looks and awkward silences that followed her everywhere at school. It was in one of these literary forums that she first encountered Alex Sterling. His profile picture showed a handsome young man with dark hair and intense eyes, and his posts about the intersection of art and literature were so profound they took her breath away. When he sent her a private message complimenting her analysis of The Bell Jar, she felt a thrill of recognition, as if she had finally found someone who spoke her language. You have an old soul, he wrote. Most people your age don't understand the depth of pain that creates true art. You're special, Serafina. The way he said her name, even in text, made her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced since her mother's death. Their online relationship blossomed slowly, carefully, with the kind of emotional intimacy that felt more real than any physical relationship she might have had with boys her own age. Alex told her he was a graduate student studying fine arts at Columbia, that he came from a wealthy family but had chosen to live modestly while pursuing his passion. He shared photos of paintings he claimed to have created, sent her long voice messages reading poetry in a voice that made her pulse quicken, and listened with apparent genuine interest as she poured out her heart about losing her mother, her dreams of becoming a writer, her feelings of isolation in a world that seemed to move too fast for her contemplative nature. You're so much more mature than other girls your age, Alex would tell her during their late-night video calls, his face partially hidden in shadow as he claimed his apartment had poor lighting. You understand things about life and love that most people never figure out. Age is just a number when two souls connect the way ours have. Serafina, starved for affection and understanding, drank in his words like water in a desert. He made her feel sophisticated, chosen, special in a way that her everyday life never did. When he told her he loved her after 3 months of intense communication, she felt like her heart might burst from the pure joy of being loved by someone so brilliant and artistic and worldly. The red flags were there, of course, but love has a way of making even the most intelligent people blind to obvious deceptions. Alex never wanted to meet in person, claiming his schedule was too demanding and that their connection was too pure to risk ruining with physical complications. He refused to video call during daylight hours, saying he was working or in classes. His social media presence was sparse, with only a handful of carefully curated photos that, in retrospect, could have been found anywhere on the internet. When Serafina suggested visiting him in New York during her spring break, he became evasive, then romantic, telling her that patience would make their eventual meeting even more magical. But it was Mr. Harrison's unusual behavior that should have been the biggest clue. Gabriel Harrison had been teaching at Westfield Prep for 8 years, known for his passionate lectures about the power of literature to transform lives and his uncanny ability to connect with students who felt like outsiders. He was 31 years old, married to a successful pediatrician named Elena, and by all accounts lived a respectable life in the suburbs with their 2 young children. But Serafina had begun to notice things: the way he would glance at her during class when he thought she wasn't looking, the way he lingered near her desk when returning assignments, the way he seemed to know exactly what books would resonate with her troubled soul. "Your essay on Gatsby's Green Light was extraordinary, Mr. Harrison," had told her one afternoon after class, his voice carrying an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "You have a rare gift for seeing the hope that exists alongside tragedy. Don't let anyone convince you that your sensitivity is a weakness, Serafina. The world needs more people who feel as deeply as you do." The conversation had made her think of Alex, of the way he validated her emotions and made her feel special for being different. She had even mentioned the compliment to Alex that night, not realizing she was essentially telling him about himself. The truth began to unravel on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday in March. Serafina had been texting with Alex during her lunch period, sharing her excitement about a poem she was working on, when her phone died. She borrowed her friend's phone to continue the conversation, but when she logged into her messaging app, she discovered that her account settings had been tampered with. Someone had been accessing her messages, reading every intimate conversation she'd had with Alex. Her blood ran cold as she realized that the only people with potential access to her school computer were the IT staff and teachers who had administrative privileges. That afternoon, she stayed after school under the pretense of working in the library, but instead she positioned herself where she could observe Mr. Harrison's classroom. Through the partially open door, she watched him at his desk, typing on his phone with an urgency that seemed unusual for someone grading papers. Her own phone buzzed with a message from Alex, and in that moment, she saw Mr. Harrison pause in his typing, smile slightly, then resume. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence, but she needed proof before she could trust her own horrific suspicions. The next day, Serafina conducted a careful experiment. During Mr. Harrison's class, she used her phone to send Alex a message about feeling unwell and needing to leave school early. She watched her teacher's face carefully, and saw the slightest flicker of concern cross his features before he composed himself. After class, she approached his desk with a manufactured question about the homework assignment. "Mr. Harrison," she said, studying his expression, "I'm not feeling well. Do you think I could be excused to go to the nurse?" His response was immediate and practiced, but she caught the way his eyes darted to her phone when it buzzed with Alex's concerned reply about her health. The final confirmation came through a piece of technology that Mr. Harrison had probably forgotten about. Serafina's laptop had a keystroke tracking software installed for parental monitoring, something her father had set up after her mother's death to ensure she wasn't engaging in dangerous online behavior. When she reviewed the logs, she found evidence that someone had accessed her messaging accounts from the school's network, specifically from IP addresses that traced back to faculty computers. The timestamps matched perfectly with her conversations with Alex, painting an undeniable picture of betrayal and manipulation. Armed with this evidence, Serafina felt her world collapse around her. Every tender moment, every profession of love, every intimate conversation had been a lie constructed by a predator who saw her vulnerability and exploited it for his own twisted satisfaction. The man she had trusted with her deepest fears and most secret dreams was the same man who stood in front of her class every day, teaching about morality and human nature while engaging in behavior that was both professionally unethical and emotionally devastating. She thought about his wife, his children, the life he was risking for the sick thrill of manipulating a grieving teenager. The anger that followed was unlike anything Serafina had ever experienced. It was pure and righteous and absolutely consuming, burning away the shy, sensitive girl she had always been and revealing something harder, more determined underneath. She spent the next week meticulously documenting everything: screenshots of conversations, evidence of the IP address matches, records of the times when Alex's responses correlated with Mr. Harrison's behavior in class. She researched the legal implications, the school policies, the potential consequences for a teacher who engaged in this kind of manipulation. She was no longer a victim, she was a prosecutor building an airtight case. But before she took any official action, Serafina decided that Gabriel Harrison deserved to know that his carefully constructed deception was crumbling. During what would be their final online conversation, she crafted her words carefully. Alex, she typed, I've been thinking about us a lot lately, and I realize that I know so little about your real life. Could you tell me about your childhood? What was your favorite book when you were in high school? She watched Mr. Harrison's face during class the next day as he read her message, saw him struggling to maintain his composure while constructing lies about a fictional past. His response came that evening, I grew up in a small town in Ohio. My favorite book was probably To Kill a Mockingbird. It taught me about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. The irony of his choice made Serafina's stomach turn. Here was a man who preyed on vulnerable students while claiming to understand moral courage, who quoted Harper Lee while engaging in behavior that would have disgusted the author herself. She typed back, that's interesting. I read that book in my AP literature class. My teacher always says that true integrity means doing the right thing even when no one is watching. What do you think about that? The trap was set, and Gabriel Harrison walked right into it. Your teacher sounds wise, he replied. Integrity is everything. It's what separates good people from those who take advantage of others. The sheer audacity of his response, the complete lack of self-awareness, solidified Serafina's resolve. This man didn't just deserve to be exposed, he needed to be stopped before he could manipulate another vulnerable student. The confrontation came on a Friday afternoon in April. Serafina had prepared everything, printed copies of their conversations, technical evidence of the IP address tracking, screenshots of Alex's profile and the way it had been constructed using images and information that could be traced back to Gabriel Harrison's actual life. She had also contacted the school administration and her father, ensuring that when she finally revealed the truth, there would be immediate consequences and support systems in place. She stayed after Mr. Harrison's last class of the day, waiting until the hallway was empty before approaching his desk where he sat grading papers, probably planning his next message to his fictional girlfriend. Mr. Harrison, she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. I need to talk to you about Alex Sterling. The color drained from his face so quickly that she almost felt sorry for him. Almost. His mouth opened and closed wordlessly as he struggled to find a response, to maintain the lie that had sustained him for 6 months. I don't know what you're talking about, Serafina, he finally managed, but his voice was weak, unconvincing even to himself. She placed the folder of evidence on his desk, watching as his eyes widened with the recognition of his own words, his own deception laid bare in black and white. You told me you loved me, she said, her voice never wavering. You made me trust you, made me believe that someone actually cared about who I was inside. You took advantage of my grief, my loneliness, my need to feel special. And you did it while looking me in the eye every single day. Gabriel Harrison's face crumpled as the full weight of his exposure hit him. Serafina, please, you don't understand. I never meant for it to go so far. You were just so mature, so intelligent, and you seemed so alone. I thought I could help you, be someone you could talk to about things you couldn't discuss with your father or your friends. His excuses were pathetic, the desperate rationalization of a man who had convinced himself that his predatory behavior was somehow altruistic. Help me? Serafina's voice rose with incredulous anger. You think lying to me, manipulating me, making me fall in love with someone who doesn't exist was helping me? You think telling a 17-year-old girl that you dream about being with her was therapeutic? You're sick, Mr. Harrison. You're a predator who preys on vulnerable students, and I'm not going to let you do this to anyone else. The door to the classroom opened, and Principal Margaret Walsh entered with 2 other school administrators and a security officer. Gabriel Harrison's world officially ended in that moment, as the careful life he had built came crashing down around him. The investigation that followed revealed that Serafina wasn't his first victim, just his most thorough and determined. 2 other former students came forward with stories of inappropriate online contact, emotional manipulation, and boundary violations that painted a picture of a man who had used his position of trust to exploit vulnerable young women for years. The legal consequences were swift and severe. Gabriel Harrison was arrested on charges of online solicitation of a minor, emotional abuse, and violating his professional ethics as an educator. His teaching license was permanently revoked, his marriage to Elena dissolved in a bitter divorce that left him with limited custody of his children, and his reputation in the community was utterly destroyed. The local news picked up the story, painting him as the predatory teacher who had manipulated a grieving student, and his name became synonymous with the dangers of online predators in educational settings. But the aftermath was more complicated for Serafina than she had anticipated. While she felt satisfaction at seeing justice served, she also had to deal with the emotional wreckage of having her trust so thoroughly violated. The love she had felt for Alex Sterling had been real, even if Alex himself was not, and grieving that relationship while simultaneously feeling proud of her strength in exposing the truth created a complex emotional landscape that required professional help to navigate. The counselor she began seeing helped her understand that being manipulated didn't make her stupid or weak, that predators like Gabriel Harrison were skilled at identifying and exploiting the exact vulnerabilities that made their victims susceptible to manipulation. You were dealing with grief, isolation, and the normal desire for connection that every teenager experiences, Dr. Sarachin explained during one of their sessions. He studied you, learned your triggers, and used his professional knowledge of psychology and human behavior to make you trust him. The fact that you were able to recognize what was happening and take action shows incredible strength and intelligence. The healing process was long and sometimes painful, but it also revealed reserves of strength that Serafina hadn't known she possessed. She threw herself into her writing with renewed passion, creating poetry and short stories that explored themes of deception, recovery, and the complexity of human relationships. Her experiences had given her a depth of understanding about manipulation and recovery that resonated with other young women who had faced similar betrayals. Her father, Thomas Blake, was devastated by his failure to protect his daughter from such a sophisticated predator, but their shared experience of trauma actually brought them closer together than they had been since her mother's death. "I was so focused on my own grief that I didn't see how isolated you had become," he admitted during one of their long conversations. "I should have been paying more attention, should have been more involved in your online activities." Serafina helped him understand that Gabriel Harrison's manipulation had been professional grade, designed to exploit exactly the kind of vulnerability that followed significant loss. The story gained national attention when Serafina decided to speak publicly about her experience, hoping to educate other young people about the sophisticated tactics that online predators use to build trust and manipulate their victims. Her testimony before a congressional committee on Internet safety was powerful and articulate, demonstrating the kind of resilience and advocacy that can emerge from surviving traumatic experiences. "Predators like Gabriel Harrison don't look like monsters," she told the committee. "They look like trusted authority figures, like people who genuinely care about your well-being and understand your unique perspective on life. They study you, learn your weaknesses, and then craft personas specifically designed to make you feel special and understood. The internet allows them to maintain these elaborate deceptions while hiding behind the anonymity of fake profiles and carefully constructed lies." Her advocacy work led to changes in how schools monitor online interactions between faculty and students, with new policies requiring transparency and oversight that make it much more difficult for predators to operate undetected. She also worked with technology companies to develop better detection systems for identifying fake profiles and suspicious patterns of communication that might indicate predatory behavior. The most unexpected outcome of her ordeal was the deep, genuine relationships she formed with other survivors of online manipulation. Through support groups and advocacy organizations, she met young women and men who had faced similar betrayals and who understood the unique combination of shame, anger, and confusion that comes with discovering that someone you trusted was systematically deceiving you. These relationships, built on shared experience and mutual support, taught her what healthy connection actually looked like. 2 years after exposing Gabriel Harrison, Serafina stood before her graduating class as valedictorian, delivering a speech about resilience, truth, and the importance of trusting your instincts even when others try to convince you that reality is different from what you perceive. "We live in an age where technology allows people to create elaborate fictional identities, where predators can study us and craft perfect personas designed to exploit our specific vulnerabilities," she said. "But we also live in an age where that same technology can be used to expose lies, to document abuse, and to connect survivors with the resources they need to heal and fight back. Her college applications included essays about her experience that impressed admissions committees with their honesty, insight, and demonstration of personal growth through adversity. She was accepted to several prestigious universities with full scholarships, recognition not just of her academic achievements but of her potential to use her experiences to make positive changes in the world. She chose to study journalism and psychology, planning to specialize in investigating and exposing online predators while also providing support for their victims. Gabriel Harrison, meanwhile, had become a cautionary tale, his name used in training programs for educators and parents about the warning signs of inappropriate relationships between adults and minors. He served 18 months in prison, lost his house and most of his possessions in the divorce settlement, and emerged to find that his professional reputation was so thoroughly destroyed that he could barely find work in retail, let alone education. The few interviews he gave showed a man who still didn't fully understand the magnitude of his betrayal, who continued to rationalize his behavior as somehow well-intentioned despite the devastating impact on his victims. The most powerful moment of closure came during Serafina's freshman year of college, when she received a letter from Elena Harrison, Gabriel's ex-wife. "I want you to know that discovering what my husband did to you and other students was the most devastating experience of my life, but also the most necessary," Elena wrote. "You saved other girls from experiencing what you went through, and you probably saved my children from growing up with a father whose secret behavior would have eventually destroyed our family anyway. I know it took incredible courage to expose him, and I'm grateful every day that you found that courage." The letter helped Serafina understand that her decision to expose Gabriel Harrison had ripple effects that extended far beyond her own healing. His wife and children were certainly hurt by the revelation, but they were also freed from living a lie, from building their lives around a man whose secret behavior put them all at risk. The other students who might have become his future victims were protected, and the policies that changed as a result of her advocacy would protect countless more young people in the future. Looking back on her experience, Serafina realized that while she would always carry the scars of Gabriel Harrison's manipulation, she had also gained something invaluable, an unshakable sense of her own strength and worth, and a clear understanding of the difference between genuine love and calculated manipulation. Real love, she had learned, doesn't require secrecy or deception. It doesn't prey on vulnerability or exploit grief. It doesn't make you question your own perceptions or doubt your instincts about what feels wrong. The young woman who had once been desperate for validation and connection from anyone who seemed to understand her had grown into someone who valued authenticity above all else, who could recognize manipulation tactics before they took hold, and who used her painful experience to protect and empower others. She had transformed her victimization into advocacy, her pain into purpose, and her betrayal into a beacon that could guide other young people away from similar traps. In her sophomore year of college, Serafina began dating a classmate named Marcus, a relationship that unfolded slowly and transparently, with none of the red flags or manipulation tactics that had characterized her online relationship with Alex Sterling. Marcus knew her full story and respected the boundaries she had established, understanding that trust would have to be earned through consistent, honest behavior over time. Their relationship became a model for what healthy connection could look like, built on mutual respect, shared interests, and the kind of genuine communication that didn't require hidden identities or elaborate deceptions. The final chapter of Serafina's story was not about revenge or even justice, though both had played important roles in her healing. It was about the discovery that surviving betrayal could actually make someone more capable of recognizing and creating authentic relationships, that understanding the tactics of manipulators could serve as armor against future deception, and that speaking truth about difficult experiences could transform personal pain into collective protection and healing. On the 5th anniversary of exposing Gabriel Harrison, Serafina published a book about her experience titled, Behind the Screen, A Survivor's Guide to Online Predators. The book became required reading in many high schools and colleges, not just because it exposed the sophisticated tactics that predators use, but because it demonstrated that young people are capable of incredible strength and wisdom when they trust their instincts and refuse to accept treatment that feels wrong, even when it comes from authority figures they're supposed to respect and trust. Her story had become more than a cautionary tale about online predators. It had become a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of truth to overcome deception, and the way that surviving trauma can transform someone from a victim into a powerful advocate for others. Serafina Blake had started as a lonely, grieving teenager desperate for connection and validation, but she had grown into a young woman who understood that her worth was not dependent on anyone else's opinion, that her strength came not from being loved by others but from being able to love herself enough to protect herself from those who would exploit her vulnerabilities. The man who had tried to steal her innocence and exploit her pain had instead inadvertently taught her the most valuable lesson of her life, that she was stronger, smarter, and more resilient than even she had imagined, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to remain silent about the truth, no matter how difficult that truth might be to speak or how much those in power might want to keep it hidden. Her final message to other young people who might find themselves in similar situations was simple but profound: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong, regardless of how the other person tries to explain it away. You are not responsible for protecting adults from the consequences of their poor choices, and you are not obligated to keep secrets that make you uncomfortable. Your safety, your well-being, and your right to authentic relationships are more important than anyone else's reputation or convenience. You are stronger than you know, and you deserve so much better than anyone who would try to manipulate or deceive you.